Okay, so good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to see all of you here, and I'm very happy that Ethan was able to make it. He has a very busy schedule, and I met Ethan first. When was that? Like a year ago when you came
Right
to
about a year ago.
I think so. He came to the bookstore down the street from us. That's why I was able to roll down to him. And he made a big impression on me, and I really liked his book. And so I'm very happy that he's now able to come here and talk with us about his first two books. And he has a third book coming out that I will let him talk about in a little bit. Ethan is on the Zoom because he's not from Pittsburgh. Um, he's a teacher, an English teacher and a psychology teacher at the University of Delaware. If I do it wrong, you let me know, Ethan.
You're good
And
so far.
he also teaches writing workshops. So if any of you would like to get into writing, Ethan is your man. And in his little free time, besides raising his family, and I imagine him walking on the beach, um, he, he writes books. And based on the topics, you would think that these are very heavy, um, heavy on your heart type of books, but in a very strange way, probably because of his background in English and psychology. His books are actually very validating and inspiring and empowering. At least that's what they did for me. And I like that there's small chapters so that all of us who may have a little chemo brain or brain fog can read a chapter at a time. And his first book that he wrote, and I always have to double check that I don't mess it up. His first book is called A Little Hope, and that was selected. Where are you? Coming back to you.
Right.
It was selected by, what is it called? Jenna Read Club as a bonus selection. And that's how I first learned about Ethan. And then his second book came out, which is called, can you hold it up, Ethan? That is called A Quiet Life. And there we go. Yes. So the first book he held up, and I keep mixing up the titles.
I'll hold them both up right
Yeah, that would be nice. So A Little Hope is a book about a newly diagnosed multiple myeloma patient and the impact of that on a very small community with intersecting storylines and characters. And the second book, A Quiet Life, is also about intersecting characters in a relatively small community, but this time cancer plays a role in the book as well, but now as a caregiver. There is a widow of a person who died from cancer who is struggling to find meaning and grieving and moving on. And it makes it hard for him. He's paralyzed for a bit and has a hard time making decisions and moving on, and how it's important to connect with others to allow you to heal from the past. And so both these books have a theme in there related to cancer. So depending on whichever one resonates with you or both, you may want to read them. So what I wanted to do is start by introducing Ethan, which I've done. I wanted to tell you a little bit about these two books, which I've done. And then I have a few questions for Ethan, but I thought, let's see how the group has questions, because obviously your questions are more important than mine. But if you need some more time to think, I can ask my questions first. But I wanted to give also first, while you're thinking about your questions, a chance for Ethan to say something about your two books. And so my question for you to get things started is, how did you come up with these two books, the storyline, and in particular, why, although why is maybe not the right question, but how did you end up including the cancer theme in there, if that's how I should ask the question? I know that might possibly become a little bit of a personal question. And if you don't want to answer, I understand. But if you're willing to share, I'm sure the group here would be interested to hear how you came about writing the cancer theme. That's my question.
Well, thank you so much to Cancer Bridges and Jen, and especially Dr. Van London for inviting me to this. It was such a pleasure when I got to meet you at the Pittsburgh bookstore, and that I've been in touch with you through Instagram and your husband taking my class. It's I just yeah, I feel like we really know each other, and thank you all for coming tonight and for being here. I think what always usually happens is to start a book and to get an idea for a book, it starts out as like a little fleck of something, a little germ that doesn't kind of go away, that just kind of stays with me for a while. So with a little hope, I was really interested in writing a book about a community in a small town, but I had no idea what that small town looked like. So I kind of took the E.L. Doctorow headlights approach that he said, it's okay when you're writing if you can only see as far as the headlights go. And so that's what I took. I kind of took it chapter by chapter, character, because it follows about a dozen or so characters. So I just tried to take it person by person and see where they left off. Once I got to the end of their chapter, okay, where does that radiate to? Who did I mention? Who can I bring into the book? And A Little Hope, I started writing a few months after we had lost my mother-in-law to leukemia. So I think that absolutely, I mean, I wasn't sitting down and trying to write a book that dealt with a terminal disease, but I think watching my mother-in-law go through that just impacted the way I viewed life so much, because not just the mourning and the loss, but I think the time when you're going through all of that, and how do you best support somebody, and how do you look at life differently, and how does it change things? So I think it's no coincidence that my first chapter starts with a man who's dealing with multiple myeloma, and it was a little bit different from leukemia, but I wanted to have something that's very difficult, but I wanted to think about new ways that you look at something, and positive, both positive and negative ways. And especially for my character in this book, he's a go-getter who's always been kind of a Captain America type guy, who's always been the first person chosen at the interview. And how do you do that when you're powerless? What are the ways that you respond? And that was kind of the question that started A Little Hope. And then with A Quiet Life, I think I was finishing editing A Little Hope, and I knew I was kind of on the prowl for something new to write about that would just kind of stay with me for a while. And my wife and I were walking on the boardwalk. You said, you imagine me walking on the beach, so it's not too far off. We were walking on the boardwalk one day, and there were a group of elderly gentlemen sitting around talking. We see this kind of group of them a lot, and I heard the one man say, I'm making my trip to Florida this year for the first time without my wife. And that just, and I knew right away, I thought, well, that when I'm ready for the new book, that's what's going to be what I write about. I want to make a guy, because that's what my grandparents did. They always wintered in South Carolina. My wife's grandparents always wintered in Florida. And I thought, what do you do? Do you still go without them? Do you decide to cancel the trip? So that was what led me to A Quiet Life, and that kind of radiated out too, because I brought in some other characters who were also going through some trying things. But yeah, sometimes you're just out listening, and you get the idea, and it doesn't leave you alone, and then that's what you want to pursue.
Thank you, Ethan. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So I wanted to see with the group, but this is very informal. Those of you who know me, I'm a little scatterhead, and my new glasses correlate with that. And so if you have questions, just ask, and if not, we can sit here silently for a little bit until something bubbles up, or I can ask a question. If you want to, maybe Ethan, I didn't tell him to prepare that, but maybe Ethan is willing to read something if you prefer to hear him read something. He has a very soothing voice. Whatever you want him to do within reason, he can do.
Can't juggle.
Yeah. So I don't know if any of you have any questions.
I have a question.
Okay, Catherine, go ahead.
Well, I just got the book yesterday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Love it. Love stories where the characters intersect and everybody comes together. But the question I have, and this is just a general question for an author, is How do you feel about the fact that you spend so many weeks, months, years writing a book, and I'm more than halfway through it in a day?
I think about that a lot, actually. And
Because
thank
I
you.
love it and I couldn't stop reading it. So I've often thought that when I do this with a book, I'm like, this person spent their soul and their life putting this story out here, and I'm done so quickly.
That's the same as cooking a meal, right? You cook
I
a
get
meal for like
Right?
a long time
Thanksgiving.
and
Yeah.
they finish it in 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think that about that a lot, especially in the Instagram community when there are bloggers and people will say, I can't wait for your next book. I can't wait for your next book. And then they get it and they're finished with it in 4 hours or 6 hours or something. And I think, wow,
Yeah.
that's, and you do, sometimes it does feel like, wow, that's really a commodity and you have to keep up with the, it's like, I Love Lucy with the chocolates on the, on the conveyor belt that you
Yeah.
just don't feel like you can keep up fast enough. But I think I've heard a lot of people that will say it's a book I want to keep and I want to go back and savor pages. And that just,
Yeah.
as a writer and a teacher and somebody that appreciates words, that means a lot to me.
I mean,
that way.
if any of you haven't read it, it's just amazing. And I
Thank you.
love stories that everybody connects and comes to. But I just got it, and Dr. Van London, recommended it. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I read it real fast, and I'm a terrible slow reader, but that speaks to what this story is about, because I read that fast usually. Like, oh, this is so good.
Well, thank you. And you know what, but that in and of itself is the gift right there. And I think sometimes once the book goes out there, it's not my book anymore. It's yours to do whatever you want with it. So if you read it slowly, if you read it quickly, it's all gratifying to me.
I've heard authors say that it's not mine anymore.
Yeah.
But it's also very interesting that each of us experience a book in our own way, depending on what we're ready to hear or feel or read at that moment. And if you reread it, you may pick up completely different things than you did before. And one of the advantages of reading, maybe more so than eating a meal, is that you remember, if a book has an impact, it changes you, and you carry that change with you through your life. In particular, if it hits you at the right time. And I think that's, yes, you finish it very quickly, but it doesn't mean the book is gone. It's just now in here, a part of you. It morphs you, it evolves you, it lifts you up to a different level.
Yeah, I definitely think that.
Yeah,
I would love.
Claudia, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'd love to hear Ethan read, or even Catherine read, some of their favorite parts, because I have not read the book yet.
Oh,
I'm planning to, but just get a foretaste.
Sure. Yeah. I could, you know what, let me just read the first page of a book. I always try not to go overboard with reading because that can be deadly. And I know as a teacher about keeping someone's attention span. So I'll just read the first page of A Quiet Life. It's just a few paragraphs, and I think it kind of sets the idea for the book pretty well. Oh, and I should preface this by saying, so I had my idea for the book, and I knew what I wanted to write about. I knew I wanted to write about this guy who always wintered somewhere with his wife, and didn't know if he was going to make the trip without her or not. But I couldn't find my way into the book. Sometimes you need that entrance in. And one of my friends who's a writer had us over one day for kind of a writing retreat in her house. And we exchanged prompts, and we said, let's write about this for a little bit. Let's write about this. And one of the prompts was a towel. And all of a sudden the book came to me, and I thought about, well, you'll see. So that was this prompt. It was really lucky that I showed up that day, because that was my way into the book. When Chuck Ayers thinks about Cat, he thinks about the faded yellow and white striped towel that lately he has been wearing around his neck like a wrestler on his way to a match. That damn towel. She used it for every bath. the towel hanging over the linen closet door to dry afterward, the smell of her pink soap as he walked by. And when they drove those hundreds of miles to Hilton Head every winter, when she took the towel along, and it became her beach towel. Even as she got older, there was something alluring about the way she draped that towel around her body or shook it out over one of the lounge chairs at the pool in South Carolina. What can he do with this towel now? This towel he should have buried with her. This towel that he sleeps with some nights. This towel that hangs there, that stays wherever he leaves it. He should fold it and put it into a box on a high shelf in the closet with the word towel written on it so he never forgets, so he never opens it again, so he never remembers her holding the towel over her arm, so naive, so unaware that the towel would outlast her, that she'd never have a chance to donate it, to tear it into cleaning rags, to use it to protect something in the attic, an antique lamp, an old mirror. He is glad for a second it didn't come to that she got to use the towel fully and without stop. And that is the first thing in forever he has been glad for.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very calm way of writing and really thinking about things, standing still and taking the time to think things through. Several concepts in the book are psychological based, which is probably because Ethan is both an English and a psychology professor, and the towel is sort of a transitional object along the lines of what little children, they like to walk around with their blankie or, you know, a stuffed lovey. It's sort of a similar thing. Adults have that too. We also have our favorite objects, or in this case, objects related to somebody who we've lost. Ethan, would you like, but without giving it all away, but would you like to maybe explain a little bit about how you've tried to interweave some psychological pearls of wisdom in the book as well? Because I found several. I won't give them away, but I liked how you did that. It's very, very well done. It's educational also.
Thank you. And I get asked that a lot because I teach psychology. I only have my master's is in psychology. I have my doctorate is in something else, international relations. So a little bit different. So I get asked that a lot, but I don't think I do anything with psychology that other writers don't do. I think that's what you do. You look for those connections, you look for the human truths, and you also look for insight. You look for, okay, we're all seeing the same thing, but I'm going to try to show you an angle to it that we haven't thought of before. And that does not often come easily. So you have to keep mining at it. But I'm a big believer. I like objects. I love going to thrift stores, somebody's jacket that they donated, or somebody, if you're at somebody's house and they have a special bowl that they only put out at the holidays. I'm obsessed with things like that. I like paying attention to things like that. If you're at a restaurant, like the diner with a little jukebox at the table, I'm just really interested in objects and the human connections we make to them. And I think sometimes you see by what objects are important to people, especially even when they're traveling, like at the airport, what they choose to take with them. I think you can see a lot about their personality. And so a character like Chuck, who's wearing that towel around his neck when he's alone in the house, you can see he's just carrying that loss there. And the towel just kind of symbolizes how just versatile she was, and how just dreamy their time in South Carolina was. So I think you can do a lot when you mine something that way. It could be the littlest thing. It could be a sugar bowl or something like, or if somebody's plant that they take care of. But I think you look for those connections that way. So all the time in my writing, you can find little objects like that come up.
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit, but I'll stop pounding you. There's some techniques in there too, but I really thought it's well written, like the towel around the neck, in terms of he wishes that his wife could still jump around his neck. It's just really, really well written, very soothing, very respectful of the process. but maybe I should stop talking for a second now and see if anybody else has something to ask or to say, or in general, you can ask Ethan everything within reason.
Your questions are fantastic. I love them.
Has anyone else read the book yet?
Mine hasn't arrived yet.
Okay. It's wonderful.
I tried getting it on Libby and there was a long waiting list.
Yeah.
So that says a lot for you.
That says
Oh,
a
well,
lot.
thank you.
Hard to get it from the library, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I did order it though, but it hasn't come. I thought I'd tried Libby and I forgot we canceled my Audible subscription. So I had to revert back to Libby. And I didn't want to wait 4 to 6 weeks. So.
No, that's too.
And books like this, it sounds like from the discussions, books like this I keep. So I don't mind buying them. And I share them with other people that I think will enjoy reading them.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. Thank you. There's also, you talked about Audible. There's also, it's called Libro FM. Has anybody used that? You can pick your, like an independent bookstore that instead of Audible, where it just goes to Amazon or something, you can pick a local bookstore that the money goes to them. I'm not sure how it does that, but you can get audiobooks that way. It's called Libro FM. I just started using that, and people view that really favorably, I guess.
Yeah. And it would be nice to give local bookstores some more business.
I mean, I'm a big fan of indie bookstores, and we have such a great one in our town here. And I just saw in the chat somebody said about picking it for their book club. Thank you so much. That would be great.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I belong to one of the libraries.
That would be Janice. Yes, thank you, Janice. So I know a lot of people then don't have not read the book, but you don't have to read it either. And that's one of the disclaimers I always have. I guess one of the observations to make in both books, but in particular in the second book, I think, is that everybody has their own set of problems. We all have a backpack that's filled with stuff. We sometimes are not aware of that, but we all have our fair share of problems. So the thing we have in common here is that we're all cancer survivors. I think the bulk of people here through Cancer Bridges are, but even out there in the world, there's a lot of people who have problems that we may not always carry on our sleeves. And it's interesting in this book how Ethan describes how it's we all having problems, and that affects how we present ourselves to the world. And sometimes we're a little grumpy, and that is, sometimes it's our personality, but sometimes that's just driven by something else. And I think he wrote that very well in terms of how people over the course of the story dealt with their issues, but in particular how things went faster if they didn't isolate themselves, if they share the story and express it to others, so that it will help healing from whatever in particular traumatic experiences you may have had, because talking about and expressing it to others who actually listen and care about it is a big part of the healing. Something becomes traumatic if you don't have somebody or some people to talk to express it and feel comforted. The other part that I wanted to say, but now lost my train of thoughts, is logistic help. Sometimes you really need other people to help you logistically. And that might be a very small thing for another person to do, but a big favor to the person who needs it. And I think that this book does a very good job in describing the importance of a community. And whether it's a physical community in a town, or as we have here, a virtual community where we're one chat or one phone call away from each other. It's very important to stick together. It's very easy to feel embarrassed, ashamed, or stigmatized and hide in a corner and feel very alone. But we all have very similar problems. Never the same, because we all put our own footprint on it, and we all need to be helped in our own way. But if you find your community, hopefully you will find a lot of empathy of people who understand sort of what it means to stand in your shoes, if that makes sense.
Well, and if I could add, Chuck, the character in the book who lost his wife, Kat, that's one of her legacies, is that she talks about being somebody's cardinal, that you should show up for people, because she says the cardinals show up in the winter when the other birds have left. I don't really even know if that's scientifically true or not, but it's true enough. And my wife's family always believed that cardinals were angels and they were coming. Somebody was visiting, and I always thought that was really sweet. So and I think that is, so one of the other characters had Chuck's wife for a teacher, and she remembers Kat saying that, to be somebody's cardinal, and it lends her to kind of look beyond her own pain and to try to help some other people. And that's I think one of my message of the books is to just kind of, whenever we can, in small ways, to show up for one another, because sometimes the help comes from where you least expect it. Sometimes it's not the people closest to you, your parents or your family members or your kids. Sometimes it's somebody really unexpected that you never thought, who can show you something different and who can expose you to something, or who can bring some different light into your life. So yeah, I think what you're saying there is so important, to not lose that hope and to not give up.
I like the idea that there were so many different generations, each with their own set of problems. So it's not like just Chuck, who's elderly. You know, we have, and I don't want to give away anything, but there's all, and the thing about the dog, I had to laugh, because for those who haven't read it, all I'm going to say is there's no way anyone's taken off with my dog. Just saying. You'll have to read the book to find out what that's all about.
Yeah, there's definitely a big role for animals in the book too. I've always had pets, so my characters always have pets, so they find their way in there as well.
I don't know where my dog is right now, but I know she's in my house.
Our cat just walked by before, and I was waiting for her to make her presence known to the group.
I just have one question. How do you have time for everything that you do? I mean, it sounds like you've got a pretty full dance card there.
You know, you make time. I mean, that's how it has to happen if you care enough about something. But and for years, I mean, when our kids were little, they're grown now. They're 15 and 19. Not grown, they're more grown now than when they were little. But when you have that hobby and that passion, and you want something to come from that, you have to put time into it, even when you have no time to give. So even sometimes, if I would be on my commute to teaching, and I would like voice the text into my phone for 20 minutes, just some ideas, any progress is progress. So I'm to the point where I feel guilty if I don't make some type of progress toward writing every day, even if it's only 15 minutes, but sometimes an hour or so. I don't think I could write full time, because I always wrote in these small windows, and I think it worked that way for me, because a lot of people say, will you stop teaching now with your books out and stuff? Will you just focus on your writing? But I don't know what that life would look like for me to only have all day to write. I think being out, being on the ground, and being around young people, especially, and hearing people talk, is just has always been good for my writing, and being with my family. So my writing worked that way, just in like small increments. I mean, there are some days where, especially with grad school and when the kids were really young, I just could never get to my writing, and you just have to kind of dust yourself off and forgive yourself and say, okay, well, maybe try again next week, maybe try again next week. And you do the best you can. And sometimes though you're onto something and you're passionate about it and you care, and it makes you find time for it and keep going back to it. We always have more time than we think we do, even though the days, for me, I feel like I never have enough time. But then I get I don't know if anyone gets their weekly screen time reports from their phones. Does anybody? That is such an eye opener. Sometimes it'll say you average 3 hours or 5 hours. And I think, what, I could be exercising, I could be doing all these different things during that 3 or 5 hours. So yeah, it's just always a negotiation every day.
Well, that's nice. So you make a practice of it. It's just definitely it's just one of the things you do each day.
Yeah, and really it's one of those things that can easily disappear if you get used to not doing it. There's really like no big openings where you say, all right, there's just this hour staring at me, I need to be writing. That hour will get eaten up by something else. So you do have to fight for it. You have to fight for your time and get used to in the habit of writing. And you're not always going to produce stuff that makes it into a final cut or that you're proud of, but it's just showing up for it every day, I think, makes you have a better chance of something happening if you get something on a page versus if there's nothing on a page.
But that reflects, I think, your passion, Ethan. You really put your heart in the stories. You like this. This is your hobby. And you get your inspiration from your daily life, so to say. And I think that also is a lesson, or I don't know, a lesson, a pearl of wisdom for the group here. Because it may feel like you're doing very little every day, but if you do it every day or every week or whatever your schedule is, at the end of the year, you've written quite a lot. And whether you are thinking about writing your own book based on, a fiction story, or maybe about your own life, we had the author, oh God, what was his name, Catherine? The one who had written the book about how to write your obituary. He was the Washington Post, or
like, hold on.
yeah. Whether you write your own story for your family or for the world to read, maybe your biography.
Ah,
Yeah, he for James Haggerty. Whether your story or you write a fictive story or a hybrid of, there's some pieces of a biography in there, and a big part of it is made up. Nobody cares as long as you enjoy writing it and it helps you process things that are stuck in your head, and it helps you heal. And you may shred it at the end of the year, or you may decide, wait a minute, this might actually be something I want to use to print it. Some people print it for their own family. They put it in a safe and they have it ready to go for later, because 3 generations from now, who knows what you all did in your life. And I think all our lives are important to be remembered. And whether you do handwriting or typing, I think what Ethan does, his way of doing it a little bit at a time, nobody has the time to put 2 hours aside to sit and write. I don't think any of us really do, because something always comes in between. But if you have a small slot of time and your head knows that this is your protected time, put an alarm clock, and then when the alarm goes, you close your sentence and off you go. But that's before you know you've written a whole bunch. Ethan has been publishing this way, I think, one book a year, and his 3rd book is coming out in July, right, Ethan?
yes, that's I have that one. This is an early copy of it. This is coming out July 2nd. I'm so excited about this because this takes place where I live in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And it really, I love the way they did. I've had the same person that has done all 3 covers, and I love what she always captures something in the book that I wasn't even thinking of, because they ask you for suggestions and my suggestions are always bad. I mean, she really captures something that that I had forgotten about in a book, and just really brings it to life that way. But yeah, when you talked about just going little by little, the writer Louise Erdrich says, writers, it's almost like an insect-like devotion to doing it. And I always imagine the ants kind of crawling slowly with like one crumb on their back, and they leave that crumb there and they go and get another one. But it does, I mean, it adds up little by little, and you just have to care about it. And it has to be something you love too, because for a lot of times you might be doing it in silence and doing it without anybody seeing it. So it has to be something that that fulfills you in some way, and that you feel like you're getting somewhere with it.
They do have websites where they will send you one question a week to answer, and then they bind it at the end, and it's a book for your family, you know, and it talks about your journey. A friend of mine wants me to do that for my cancer journey. I haven't really done it yet, but I'm thinking about it, because it's been
That's really
such a
interesting.
journey. But it's nice, because I said, oh, I'm not a writer. He said, but they prompt you with a different question every week. And I have a friend I went to college with that has started it for her family. She doesn't have cancer, but it's going to give them the history of her life, which I think is really a nice keepsake for your family.
That really is.
Especially
And
so
I
that
was
makes it
thinking
more
of doing that.
manageable for me.
I was thinking of doing that, but what happens if you want to rewrite from a previous week or previous month? You've already given what you've written to the publisher. I feel like I would want to have the opportunity to look it over at
Do
least
you not
once
have
more
that? I
before.
haven't really started it yet. There's been too much going on.
For the most part, you get these prompts to your email. And so you can either insert it directly in their software, or you can just keep it in Google Drive or somewhere.
Okay.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a thought. Yeah.
Put
I
in
would
later.
think they would let you read it before they put the final copy together.
Yeah.
But that's one way that I may be able to do that, because I'm not a writer. Now, my daughter, she's a beautiful writer, but she didn't get it from me.
You need to be ready for that. You know when you're ready.
Yeah.
You may start contemplating it, which is one step closer. Some people will never be ready to touch that stuff. It's still like sort of a hot potato that you rather would like to throw away or forget about. And others would really like to torture themselves a little bit and marinate in it and plow themselves through it. You know what you're ready for, and you may start it, and after 3 questions you're like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
You know, and other people like to talk about it rather than write. And so there is again, we're all different. We all deal with stuff in our own unique way, and others like to you know, make art.
Yeah.
Writing is an art, but they like to paint or express their thoughts and feelings in an abstract or a visual way that doesn't involve words, like that picture in front of Ethan's book, that tells us a lot about what's coming in the book, and at the same time it tells us absolutely nothing. So you just have to go and read it. What is the book about, Ethan? Can you give a little bit away, or you can't tell us anything yet?
The next book?
The third one, yes.
Yeah. So this is actually, and this is the first time I've done a singular character book, because A Little Hope had 12 characters, and then A Quiet Life had 3. And A Quiet Life, I thought I was just going to do a 1 character book, but it just got to be just one man alone in his house in Pennsylvania, and kind of ruminating. I thought, I need some other characters and some more action in here. So that had 3. But then The Same Bright Stars just has 1 character, and it's a man in his 50s who has had his family restaurant. It's been in the family for 3 generations. And he wakes up one day and he decides he thinks he's going to sell the restaurant to a company that's been buying up all the local restaurants. And he's really relieved about his decision, because the restaurant has kind of taken everything from him, especially in the summers. It's just grueling, and he's had no time to have a relationship or no time for a life. But he also starts to feel this loss about leaving his crew behind, his who have become kind of his family. So he wrestles with that decision. Should he sell, or should he stay? Should he kind of stay the course that hasn't been giving him any kind of long-term satisfaction? Once he bought a beach chair, and his goal was to just one day in the summer just sit on that beach chair and take it all in and enjoy the beach. And he never got to use it. The chair's been hanging in his closet. So that's his decision, trying to make that decision. And some things come up from his past that influenced the decision as well. So that's your teaser.
Sounds
Well, are you coming to Pittsburgh for this book?
I would love to. We haven't talked about where I'm going to go, but it's usually pretty East Coast and regional. So I would love to come to. I love Pittsburgh. My favorite thing about Pittsburgh is what are the Eaton Park restaurants?
Okay.
My wife and children are dying to come to Pittsburgh just to see the Mr. Rogers Museum and the Eaton Park restaurants, because I hyped up the Eaton Park restaurants so much because we don't have them here. We don't have them in Eastern Pennsylvania. We don't have them anywhere in Delaware or Maryland. Because they're central PA over to Western PA.
I don't even think they're in central. We just have them all here,
all over PA. Yeah. I tried to look on a map. I thought, where's the cliffs? And I don't know. I went twice when I was there, and I kept taking pictures to show my family there.
Well, I hope
little pleasures in life, right?
Yes. Yes.
I would love to. Riverstone and White Whale and Penguin Books, they were all so nice when I was there. So I would love to come again.
Yeah, they were great.
Thank you. Are there any other questions that any of you have? We still have a little bit of time.
I like his process
I
saying
just
do a
wanted to
little
share
bit every
something
day.
personal.
Oh, wait.
I think
Patty.
Karen was going first, and then Patty can go.
No, I just said I like how he said do a little bit every day.
Okay.
Then it's not so overwhelming.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Patty.
And wait, Patty, 1 second. I think Janice, you had something to say, right? Did you? Shall we do Patty first and then Janice? Is that okay? Okay. Sorry, Patty. Go ahead. Did we lose you?
That's okay. No, I was just circling back to earlier. I actually am writing about my cancer journey and I'm calling it The Journey Back to Health. That's not the title of the book, but that's what I'm writing. And it's twofold purpose. One, because I believe it's therapeutic for me to especially write about some of the more one account to some of the medical misadventures that I have been able to survive from. And secondly, that I'm with the hope that it will help another person, because it's a book of determination and resilience. And I'm doing it on my own. I know that someone mentioned about, your piece in and they'll, bind, publish it and everything for you, however they do that for some maybe. But I think it's Claudia that found to be able to hold on hers and maybe reflect on it and maybe edit it and look at it again. And I find that incredibly helpful for me, that, that just first draft that comes out is basically just what comes out. And then from there, I glean so much more on it and I can put in some good personal reflection and edit it, etc. So I just want to share, if anybody's interested in penning their journey, right, about,
Thank you, Eddie.
it's something
I think
and
Sorry.
just any time. And I love what you said, Ethan, about, and it's encouraging that you don't have to write for an hour every day.
Patty, I like what you said also in terms of, I think you said pen. You use a pen and paper, it sounds like. And that brings another dimension to your writing, I think, but Ethan knows this better than I do. But when I write with pen and paper, it's slower than when I hammer on my keyboard. And somehow I find that my brain produces different types of sentences than when I type on a keyboard. And so I started journaling, believe it not, and I write first on paper. And if it's really a nice piece, then another day I read it again and I type it on a typewriter, a computer. Ethan, sounds like you want to say something.
Yeah, no, I think they're all different types of, I don't know what that is, responses from the brain, because longhand versus typing versus voice to text. Sometimes I like voice to text because it's like my thoughts and my words can keep up with each other that they can't do with typing, and especially not with longhand. So, but I think it's good to vary all of those. I think if you're writing in longhand first and then you're typing it, I think you're building in an editing process while you're doing that. So you're fixing things as you go. I can't write in longhand anymore. I find myself just that I can't understand my writing and that I can't keep up with my thoughts. So it's frustrating, but I think there's still a lot to be said for writing in longhand and looking at your writing and making careful decisions about, because you don't like to scribble things out. So making careful decisions before you put them down. But I think they're all different brain responses.
Thank you, Patty. Janice, I think you wanted to share something too.
I just wanted to ask Ethan, I'm a longtime vacationer, 17 years in a row at Bethany Beach in Rehoboth. I'm very familiar. And now my son is married and goes to Rehoboth. I didn't know if you do any book signings or anything at the beach, in the beach area, or you have a schedule maybe I could look at on a website.
I do actually. That's fantastic. Yeah, there's it's such a great place. My dad's family started coming to Rehoboth in the 1950s. So then he and my mom bought a place here in the 1980s, I think. And it was just such a different, so I kind of grew up here between here and northeastern Pennsylvania. And I absolutely love it. It was my dream. And my wife, then we started coming when we were dating in college. And that was our dream, to just finally one day be able to move here. Yeah, I do some signings at Bethany Beach Books. I was actually just there when my paperback came out. So probably in the summer, I would think I'll be back there. And I do a lot with Browse About Books in Rehoboth on the main street. And if anybody ever wants, you can order with them online and you can get a signed and personalized copy. You can say, I would like Ethan to write this out for Browse About. But I mean, if you wanted to order from Bethany, I would go there too. It's only about 20 minutes away.
Where's Browse About?
Browse About Books. Yeah, that's in Rehoboth.
In Rehoboth.
They have a great website that you can order from there. But if you order any of my books from there and put a note in the comments, I would like Ethan to sign this and address it to my dad or something.
Yeah.
I'm in there all the time. We were just in there today, actually. Every time we need a gift or something. Oh, perfect. The website.
Is that it? If Ethan, did I get
that looks like it. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll click on that. I think
I put a link in the chat. Okay, good.
Yeah, and you can, I mean, it's a really easy website to use. So if you ever want something, a signed or personalized book, and the owner will just send me a text and say, we have an order for you if you want to sign things.
Yep, my name is Janice. You'll be hearing from me soon.
Oh, great. I would love that, Janice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's so important to support. And I mean, we always think it's so easy to go on Amazon and order it and it'll get here in 2 days. But an independent bookstore does so much for the community, any type of independent independent business.
Yeah.
I mean, like Browse About's open 364 days a year, and they've offered their space for us in the Writers Guild to teach classes there. They give back to the community in so many different ways. They donate countless books, like thousands of dollars of books a year to the bookmobile for the students in the schools, and you don't see those things from Amazon. So I'm a big believer in indie bookstores and libraries too. We're really lucky with wonderful libraries here.
I'm a school teacher and I get my books at the beginning of the year from Riverstone, and we have I have a great personal relationship with them, and they've come and done talks in our school. So I like to support the local bookstores as well.
Well, I remember during COVID when everything was closed, and somebody said, I don't know where I read it, but they said, you have to keep sponsoring the things you want to see come back after COVID. And I remember that just really stayed with me, that I would call like our local restaurants and can we take out there? And I mean, chains make it so it's easy to support them, but if you put a little extra work in and support the indie restaurants, that's what you want from the community.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything to share? You don't have to, just giving you the opportunity.
He may have announced this. I was a little bit late joining. Does Ethan have a website for people to take a look
Yes, I
at?
can.
And
Let me put it right. I'll put it right into the chat.
thank you.
And
Thank you, Ethan.
EthanJoellaWriter.com. I think that should link to it. Wait, let me.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
So I was in Mystic, Connecticut a couple years ago, and you talked about Amazon. So I took this picture. I hope you can see it. It was a sign in an independent bookstore. It says, buy books from people who want to sell books, not colonize the moon.
It's true. it's really true. And
something about Amazon, maybe?
and the booksellers are just such wonderful people. They listen. I mean, because people will go in and say, there's a book and I don't know the title and I don't know what year it was written, but somebody was talking about it. And you should see, these booksellers will say, oh, I think it's this, this, and this. And it's amazing what they know and the relationships they have with the community, that, or they'll know. I set this aside because Marge likes to read this type of book, and Marge will come in every week and get another book from them. Yeah, it's really amazing.
I always ask this question, and I will ask it this time again. Did anything we say today trigger you in any way? Did it give you any bad feelings that we need to talk about? You all know how to find Jen and myself afterwards. If any of what we discussed here today triggered you, which is possible. And so I always want to add that disclaimer there. And I think, Patty, did you say something, or were you not muted and you were talking to somebody else? I guess Patty is okay. Well, I'm very, oh, go ahead, Patty.
You know what? I'm sorry. I thought I was muted and I was actually reading aloud. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I just didn't want to miss your question.
I was reading the chat aloud.
That's okay, sweetie. And now I'm gonna ask Jen for help. Jen, we have a third book chat already scheduled with another author who some of you know, Brad Buchanan, who is a survivor of a transplant for leukemia. And some of us know him, but he's written a book about his journey, and he is coming to share that book just like we did with Ethan tonight in February. Do you know the date out of the top of your head, Jen?
Yes, the date. I'm sorry. The date is February 21st. It is a Wednesday
at 6 o'clock, right? Same day, same time. It's just another month.
I don't believe it's on the calendar yet, so I don't think you can sign up to attend that night yet, but it will be on soon.
But I'm guessing some people are going to ask if they can buy the book, I'm guessing. So hold on a minute.
Right.
Okay, keep talking. I'm going to put it in here.
Okay.
We're becoming a little more organized, believe it or not.
I don't know if I have. I didn't bring.
I have it.
Okay.
You're only the second author that we have, and I'm very happy that you decided to give us a chance. But we're becoming organized. So here it is. It's an Amazon link. Forgive me for that, but it's the easiest to find. Order it through your private store. Can everybody open this link? It's Brad Buchanan. He's having a chronic consequence of his transplant, graft versus host disease, which he can tell you about. It's obviously very helpful for those who went through what he's gone through, but at the same time, I think a lot of what he talks about will resonate with many of us in terms of fear of recurrence and dealing with with chronic complications of your cancer and cancer treatments. But that is different than tonight. Tonight was sort of fiction, although it's based on, there's some element of Ethan's family history in there. This is very biographical. So you can decide if you're ready to hear that or if you want to listen to it another time. Jen will probably record it again. So if you're not on here, but you're welcome to join us. Jen is always here as a backup for me in case I can't make it for whatever reason. And I'm not sure I introduced myself, but to do it at the end is a little weird. That's okay. I think most of you know me anyway as Dr. Josie, who used to work at UPMC, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and now I am fully disabled at home. But I'm very grateful that Cancer Bridges lets me volunteer and do these activities that really give me meaning and purpose, and hopefully will be helpful to many of you. And with that, we always like to start on time. We like to end on time. If there's no more questions, I would like to give it to Ethan to put the spotlight on him one more time. If there's anything else you would like to share, Ethan, before we close off the evening.
No, well, thank you all for having me on, and it's been nice discussing this with all of you. Thank you especially to Dr. Van London for inviting me, and for Jen. But thank you to all of you who attended, and I wish you nothing but all good things.
Thank you, Ethan. We wish you this.
Thank you.
Hope to
Thank
see
you.
you later this year.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very
Bye,
much.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye all.